You're listening to the AAF Analyzed podcast with your host, Derek Hyde and Garrett Lay.
Hello and welcome. You are listening to AAF Analyzed, and it is our Week 5 recap. We're officially halfway through the year, and I cannot be more excited. As always, I am Derek Hyde, and as always alongside me, Garrett Lay. But before we get started, do not forget, if you are listening on YouTube, to like and subscribe. If you're on SoundCloud, to like and give us a follow. And subscribe and leave us a review on our Apple Podcast, too. We're also on a ton of other websites, so if you want to give us a like on those, too, those would also be greatly appreciated. And make sure to, most importantly, follow us on Twitter at AAF Analyzed to keep up with all the latest news and episode release announcements.
Yep, we're pretty much everywhere now, which is awesome, thanks to that new Hangover network that we joined. So we have episodes quite literally anywhere and everywhere. You can access them whenever you want, whenever you have a hankering for our delicious voices. So please enjoy our episodes anywhere and everywhere. Some of you may notice that we have a new intro song, and we'd once again like to thank Seven. He's the man for putting this together. We shouted him out on our Twitter, and we linked his SoundCloud. He makes some awesome music. So if you liked what you heard, I guarantee you did. You can go check him out there at the link we tweeted about. So, yep, thanks again, Seven. And before we get to the individual game recaps, we're going to continue to keep track of how well we do picking games. This week was an interesting one, to say the least.
Yeah, well, we both picked the same games for all four of them because we had pretty good feelings about who would win, and we were proved wrong pretty spectacularly in at least the Fleet game. The other game we got wrong was the Commanders game, which surprisingly was a bit closer than we would have expected. But 2-2 for both of us this week. That improves me to 14-6, and Garrett's just hanging on above double-digit losses at 11-9.
You know, when you look at these games, and we did go 2-2, both of us, but I think it was worth it with the quality of football we got and the fact that it is starting to shape up as if the AAF is going to be an incredibly competitive league. You could maybe say save for the Apollos right now. But other than that, these teams are looking really, really good, and it looks like all of them are going to be able to put up a fight against each other, which is not good for people trying to get games right, but excellent for fans who want great football. So I think that's awesome right now.
Yeah, with the Legends of the Express finding their offenses, I really think that just about anyone has a chance to make a playoff push. It just really looks at that way, and I think it'll be really exciting to watch this second half now that everyone's got things figured out.
Well, speaking of a team that absolutely has things figured out and we will definitely see in the playoffs, that is the Orlando Apollos, and our first game recap of the week is going to be Orlando Apollos at the Birmingham Iron. The Apollos won this game 31-14. Well, Derek, it looks like defense does not win championships because the Apollos offense is pretty much unstoppable still, despite all the hype around that Irons defense. The Apollos still had 468 total yards of offense. Gilbert had 286 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Davion Smith had 119 rushing yards, and Charles Johnson continued to dominate with 83 yards and a touchdown. They never turned the ball over and pretty much played a perfect game on offense, and their defense wasn't shabby either.
No, not at all. It was really weird because you thought that it would be close, but from the get-go, Orlando just had the upper hand, and it seems like they watched a lot of film and they knew exactly where their weaknesses were, and they found them within the first drive.
Yeah, speaking of the get-go, you knew things weren't going to be going great for the Iron when the Apollos marched right down the field and scored on their very first drive, which was a passing TD, which the Iron had only given up once before. We had talked about how good the Iron secondary looked, and then immediately they gave up a passing touchdown. Then, following that, the Iron missed a 35-yard field goal, so they were not off to a hot start or looking like a team that could beat the Apollos. A few drives later, Luis Perez threw into triple coverage, and the highest-rated cornerback in the AAF right now, Keith Rieser, snagged his third pick of the season and first pick 6. With this pick, Perez was pulled, and backup quarterback Keith Price entered the game. This is where things really started to get pretty exciting. Both defenses stepped up for the next few drives, keeping the teams out of scoring range until the Apollos kicked a 21-yard field goal with 3 minutes and 34 seconds left in half. The Iron still had some fight left in them, though, and Keith Price led the Iron right into the Trent Richardson zone, which is what we're going to be calling any area from 5 yards in now for the Iron. Trent Richardson got his patented 3-yard touchdown run, powerful run right up the middle. Literally no team can stop this at this point, and the Iron definitely were still in this game. The Apollos refused to be outdone, however, and marched down the field thanks to a big run from Ernest Johnson to sink another field goal to go up into half 20-8. The third quarter definitely kept the game interesting when the Iron were able to score a touchdown where Keith Price threw to a wide-open Brandon Ross, who housed it for a 30-yard receiving touchdown to make it a one-score game, and this was the first receiving touchdown of the Iron's existence. That was an exciting play to watch. But once again, unfazed, the Apollos got down the field, kicked a field goal, made a big defensive stop, and Garrett Gilbert threw a 12-yard touchdown to all-reliable Charles Johnson to go up 30-14, which would stand for the 31-14, which would stand for the rest of the game. The Iron would get 2 more shots to go down the field, but they came up a yard short on their first fourth down conversion attempt, and the game ended on an illegal forward pass on fourth down. And that was all she wrote. The Apollos still continue to look like by far the most dominant team in the AAF and really handed that game to the Iron.
Yeah, it really just didn't look like the Iron came to play, or it also looked like the Apollos had their number every time they tried to do something. My favorite stat from this game, though, is the Iron went into this game only giving up 12 points at most throughout 4 quarters of the game. First quarter against the Apollos, they gave up 14.
Yeah,
just shows how good they are.
Yeah, it's not even a knock against the Iron defense. They're still good. It's just showing how amazing that Apollos offense is. Steve Spurrier is pretty much coaching a perfect game every week. So yeah. It doesn't look like anyone's going to be able to stand up to them right now.
No, not at all.
All right, now for the stories of this game. First story, this is the big one. Luis Perez is benched. Is Keith Price the answer for the Iron's offensive woes? Tim Lewis looked like he made the right call as the Iron offense was able to get their first passing touchdown, and Price did throw for 231 yards. But is he really that good? I'd caution you to think so, because we have seen a trend of backups coming in and having a good game, which you probably can contribute some to the fact that these teams have no film on these backups whatsoever. These guys are brand new players that, unless if they maybe had some playing time on practice squads in the NFL, the other teams know literally nothing about them. Also, maybe if they watch them in college some, but that's totally different. So that is something you want to keep in mind here when you look at Price's performance. The Apollos just hadn't prepared this game for him. So you have to be cautious when saying that. Also, you said, Derek, I thought this was a great point. You said that he reminded you of Tyrod Taylor. And being a Bills fan, I really do agree. He can make plays with both his arms and his legs, but held the ball for far too long in the pocket and would just end up having to tuck the ball and run or take a sack.
Yeah, I feel like he just spent far too much time in the pocket. It just really wasn't a good thing. But I'm going to be completely honest. I really wasn't that impressed with Price, despite his impressive stat line going 18-29 for 234 yards and a touchdown. He just holds that ball for way too long. I just want to point out the Iron gave up 5 sacks this game with Price under center, and the most they've ever given up in a full game before that, 2. I feel as if the Iron will continue to go with Price for the time being, but I don't think we've seen the end of Luis Perez. I really don't.
No, I agree with you there. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Perez makes another appearance later on the season, particularly if Keith just can't lead them to wins, because I know that was the same thing that was happening with Tyrod and the Bills. He was making great plays and had solid stat lines, but he just wasn't leading the team to wins. If Price does turn out to be a really good quarterback, the Iron could absolutely be one of the top 2 teams in the league. Their defense is still good despite what happened to them this weekend. So if he can get that passing game going and their run game can average, once again, more than 3 yards per carry, which they still aren't really doing, they could definitely be a lethal team.
Yeah, but remember how after week 1, there were 8 teams giving offers out to Luis Perez in the NFL. How many of those do you think are still there after this game?
0, Derek. 0. He's gonna have some work to do, which I hope he gets another chance, but who knows here. All right.
He definitely doesn't have an Antonio Brown to throw to. So
no, he doesn't.
He's getting hung out to dry there, but no touchdowns through 4 weeks, and your backup did it in, I think, 2 quarters.
Yeah, he did. So
it doesn't look good for him.
No, it doesn't. You talked about the sacks that they were giving up, and I do have to say, this Apollo's pass rush really impressed me this game. Particularly at the end of the game, they were absolutely lethal. Darrell Worthy, who has some great NFL experience, and Anthony Motton Jr. were on fire. Worthy had 1 sack and Motton had 2. And if you watch the game near the end, Worthy was pushing his blocker back like 6 yards into the pocket in 2 seconds on nearly every play, forcing Price to either roll out or tuck and run. So Price was holding the ball for too long, but this offensive line near the end seemed to really feel that fatigue of a full game, and they were getting dominated at the line.
I feel like there was a lot of times, though, where Price was rolling out of the pocket as soon as he got the ball, though.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand still in the pocket if you gave him money to do it. But honestly, this Apollo's defense might just be as deadly as their offense. I've seen them stop just about everything in their way, and I'm sure practicing against their offense only makes you better week to week. When you're going up against the number one offense on a daily basis, there's nothing that can do but make you better.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because they're playing an offense that is far and above the best one in the league. So it's not surprising that their defense is also excellent because, like you said, they have to make plays against the best offensive players right now, which is super exciting, and it can only mean better things to come for the Apollos.
Yeah.
Speaking of the other defense, though, the Iron defense, yes, they did give up 31 points. That was bad. But the 3 field goals that they allowed were all under 30 yards, so they were making some decent stops close to the end zone, but it just wasn't enough. They had no sacks, no forced turnovers. They gave up over 400 yards of offense. The supposed number one defense got shredded. There isn't really a better way to put it. They're going to need to do some serious soul-searching at practice to find the turnover-forcing monster that they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, the Apollos offense just made the Iron look like Swiss cheese. By the end of the first quarter, the Apollos had scored more points than the Iron in any team in an entire game against them. And we now know that in a battle between the number one defense and number one offense, put your money down on the offense because they ran away with this. And Charles Johnson, we thought that Summers would have been covering him, who had been one of the best corners in the league. And Charles Johnson nearly had 100 yards, I believe.
Yeah,
83 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion on 6 catches.
Yeah, I think the Iron are running more of a zone defense. So when he wasn't covering him, Johnson really blew up. Now I did see Johnson beat. I think he actually beat Summers in the end zone for that touchdown. So that was a knock against him. He still did play a great game, but Charles Johnson is looking like he is the best receiver right now in the league. He's putting up great numbers every week, and no one really seems to be able to slow him down.
Yeah, I think he's just extended his lead of number one in receiving yards this week.
Yeah, he did. Another player who looks pretty much unstoppable on that Apollos offense is Davion Smith. Just when you thought the Apollos offense couldn't get any better, this dude showed up. He had a respectable game week 4 with 12 carries for 51 yards, and then just blew that out of the water this week, rushing for 119 yards on 14 carries, averaging 8.5 yards per carry, which is just ridiculous. Wow. He was a powerful runner with vision and elusiveness, and will be adding yet another dimension to an already filthy team.
Yeah, I thought it was weird because we haven't really seen him do anything so far this season. Like week 1, he had 5 carries for 13 yards. He did have a touchdown that week, though. And then his carries went down to 4, and they went up to 8. And in these weeks prior, he hasn't gotten more than 50 yards on 8 or 10 touches. And this week, they just gave him the ball, and he ran with it.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it is looking like this Iron defense has a serious weakness at that run. Just like we said last week, Kenneth Farrow absolutely shredded them, going for 142 yards. So, once again, this Iron defense isn't going to be that great if they don't have both the passing defense and the running defense. You got to have both on a good defense.
Yeah, another one of the things we thought about with the Iron is they really lean on the turnover to have a good defensive day. And when you're playing against a team like the Apollos, they just don't turn over the ball that easily.
No, they don't.
So it's going to be hard to beat a team like them when they seemingly don't make a lot of mistakes.
Nope. Mistake-free football is pretty much what the Apollos are all about, and they have still been doing that really, really well. So, once again, like we said, they are right now the number one team in the AAF. Anyone with a pair of eyes can see that. So, We'll move on to the game MVP for this week, or for this game, and mine, of course, is Garrett Gilbert. He's a league MVP at this point and is leading the most dominant offense in the AAF. He never misses a beat. He kept the ball out of the hands of an iron defense hungry for turnovers and is by far the best quarterback in the AAF.
Yeah, this is true. I was really impressed with Charles Johnson, though, who was able to break Jamar Summers for a lot of these catches. But it does not get better in the AAF than Gilbert. He balls out every game. He just extended his 200 yards and 2-touchdown streak to 5. And I don't see a weakness from him watching these games. So good luck to these coaches with upcoming games against the Apollos, because you've got a lot to plan for, and I don't know how you're going to do that.
Yeah, Gilbert is almost equally as good at throwing in the pocket as he is out of the pocket, so it's really difficult to figure out what you're supposed to do with him. I will be surprised when he gets picked off for the first time. That'll be quite the momentous occasion for any defense playing him.
I bet it'll be some weird tip drill interception.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like his receiver drops the ball, because right now it doesn't look like he's planning on making any mistakes anytime soon.
No, not at all.
All right, now for the next game, which was the Salt Lake Stallions at the San Diego Fleet. The Stallions lost this one 25-27. The Fleet improved to, is it 3-2 right now? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, 3-2. In all honesty, this game wasn't that exciting until the fourth quarter, where it pretty much turned into the best game all year.
That's true.
The Fleet started off with a missed field goal from 41 yards out, but the Stallions were held to a 3-and-out on their next drive. Donnie Hagerman then redeemed himself the next drive and made a 31-yarder, but so did the Stallions' offense as they drove down the field and finished with a crisp 3-yard touchdown run from Joel Buonio. Ooh, I got it right this time. Let's go.
You did get it right. I'm proud of you.
The Fleet responded with another field goal, and then this menacing Fleet defense came up with a pick on the next drive. They wouldn't be able to get any points off the turnover, and neither team got anything going until the Stallions made it down to the Fleet's 2-yard line with 57 seconds left in the half. Joel ran it in, but the touchdown was nullified because of a chop block. The very next play, Woodrum was picked off again by Cameron Kelly, and the half ended with the Stallions up 8-6. Cameron Kelly is going to be someone we talk just a little bit about later on.
Yeah, but Josh Woodrum really just had a really bad day at the office for that first half. I don't really know what happened, but he was not on his game, and it was sad to see.
It was. The Stallions kicked a field goal in the third and were looking good until Terrence Newby fumbled and the San Diego Fleet took it 41 yards to the house. It was a beautiful house call. To rub salt in the wound, the very next drive, Woodrum was hurt on a roughing the passer penalty, and his backup Austin Allen came in, only to be sacked almost immediately, and San Diego would recover that fumble as well. Bercovici turned the field position into points with an 18-yard touchdown toss. Things turned in Salt Lake's favor for a fleeting moment when they picked off Bercovici in their own red zone. The mighty Josh Woodrum returned from concussion protocol, only to throw a pick six on his first attempt back to his new nemesis, Cameron Kelly. That was Cameron Kelly's third pick of the game, and that one was a pick six. Salt Lake refused to let this win sail out of their reach. And Joel found the end zone on a 4-yard run the next drive. The defense stepped up and forced a 3-and-out. All right, this is where things get very interesting, and if you watched it, Derek, you and I both watched it, and it was fantastic football. It was football in its purest form. It was wonderful to watch. So here it is, the situation. Score is currently 17-24 with 2 minutes and 17 seconds left in the game. If the Stallions can drive down the field and finish with 8 points, a win is almost certain. The following was the best 2 minutes and 17 seconds of football the AAF has seen yet. The Stallions make it into the red zone thanks to a 42-yard bomb and spectacular helmet catch by Adonis Jennings. Their drive was kept alive by a San Diego penalty, and Woodrum finds his tight end Nick Truesdale in the end zone from 6 yards out. In the highest pressure scenario possible, which this is why 2-point conversions, I think, really make the AAF exciting, the Stallions convert a blown-up 2-point conversion play where Woodrum is rolling out to his right and has to come all the way back to his left to complete the pass. And they take the lead 25-24 with only 51 seconds left. They have won, or so they think. the second play of the Fleet's final possession, Berkovici puts on his big boy pants and slings a 45-yard bomb to a streaking Dantes Ford, and just like that, the Fleet are in field goal range, and Donnie ice in his veins. Hagerman drills a 44-yard kick to steal the game in front of a home crowd. I am very jealous of any San Diego Fleet fan who was at that game because you saw something spectacular.
Could you imagine being a Stallions fan?
That would hurt. That would hurt.
What if that game was in Salt Lake, too?
That would have been absolutely heartbreaking for a Salt Lake fan at home.
Oh, man. That was such an incredible way to end that game. And I'm going to be honest, I thought the Stallions were out of it that entire fourth quarter, but Josh Woodrum showed me something I haven't seen, and he was very impressive, to say the least.
He did. Speaking of Woodrum, I'd like to go through some of the key players for this game. Woodrum, he was 31 for 48 for 380 and a touchdown, but he did throw those 3 picks, and they ended up really being pretty key to them losing this game. Wide receiver DeMornay Pearson-L is really beginning to step up as one of the premier receivers in the league, as he had 8 catches on 9 targets for 130 yards. Tight end Nick Truesdell, he was 6 for 6 for 71 yards and a touchdown. If you don't have him in fantasy yet or are looking for a daily fantasy tight end, he's looking to be someone who's really, really solid. And the monster in defensive end Carter Schultz had 5 tackles, 4 of which were for a loss. And then on the Fleet side of the ball, Mike Berkovici went 22 for 43 for 304, a touchdown and a pick. Dantes Ford had only 3 catches on 6 receptions, but they were for 94 yards, and of course that massive play at the end of the game. Cameron Kelly, this guy was absolutely ridiculous. He had 5 tackles, 4 passes defended, 3 interceptions, and a touchdown. And then another ridiculous player on the Fleet defense was DeMontre Moore. He had 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery.
Yeah, that Fleet defense was very impressive. I would say I was most impressed by how the Fleet defense did. Not so much Mike Berkovici, if I'm going to be completely honest. Because if we look at the box score, the Fleet defense was able to score more points than Berkovici this week. So if we're talking about Berkovici blowing up and having a great game, he got one up by his defense. That's all I'm saying.
He did. If we want to go ahead, we can move right into talking about Berkovici now.
Yeah, well, Mike must have heard my barrage of insults.
Yeah, I almost guarantee he listens to the show every week.
Yeah, well, he can insult me on Twitter because he does listen. I don't know that for a fact, but tweet us out if you do, and we'll definitely give you a like and a retweet, and Derek will say very nice things about you from here on out. And he replied in incredible fashion. For the record, I always knew that Mike Berkovici could put up good yardage numbers because he's done that before in both his preseason game and week 1. But I just couldn't trust his ability to keep a hold of the ball and not turn it over. He had 1 interception, but that's nowhere close to what I was expecting in this game. 300 yards and 1 touchdown is very impressive, but Mike, I'm going to need to see you to do it next week against the Iron before I'm a full believer.
Hey, you know what? That's totally fair. Like we said, Iron pass defense, excellent. So if Mike can tear them apart like he did the Stallion secondary, I will also become a Mike Berkovici believer. He was putting some mustard in the balls that I hadn't seen him be able to make throws. He was really putting in tight windows and launching the ball down the field. So whatever happened to him after he got rocked in that week 1 game, it was a good thing because he's looking like a much better quarterback than he did in the preseason and that first game. Speaking of the other quarterback, however, Josh Woodrum, I do still think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league despite the 3 picks. If Cameron Kelly didn't go absolutely bananas, the Stallions probably win this game, and it would have been thanks to Josh Woodrum. I honestly still really like the Stallions, and in my opinion, they're 1 win away from catching fire. Besides their week 1 loss to the Hotshots, they've never lost by more than 10 points and have a shot to win almost every single game. They just need to figure out how to get that win. Woodrum is showing he can lead, but now he has to actually show that he can come away with a victory.
Yeah, the big thing I keep noticing with Woodrum is the mistakes. This offense is built around him, and they do a lot of great things with him, but he just has to limit these mistakes before they become that one of the best teams in the West, but he just can't limit them because he makes costly interceptions and they cost him the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, they're that close, but yet that far away. And
Yeah, like
this small gap that they need to traverse just seems like miles across because they can't just get over it.
It's just a hump that they can't get over. Like that pick he threw when they were down in the red zone to Cameron Kelly, his second one. That's a big one. You can't throw. You have to come away on that drive with points, because if you come away with points, you would have won this game. So you just can't turn the ball over when you're in field goal range. That's something that a lot of these quarterbacks need to learn. You got to take care of the ball. Even Gilbert in his game against the Iron made a really, really risky throw while he was getting sacked and almost had his first pick. So you have to make sure that you're taking care of the ball first and foremost so that your team has a chance to actually put points on the board.
Yeah. Neither team had a run game, though, which was very strange.
No, they didn't.
We talked about how important the run game would be in this game, but both teams, who seemingly had deadly rushing attacks going into this, didn't have anything. San Diego only had 31 total rushing yards in this game. Salt Lake had 57 yards, and without Brandon Oliver in the lineup, who was fatally put on IR on Friday, Joel Buono just struggled to do all the work by himself. The Steins tried to give Terrell Newby some carries in the Oliver position, but on 6 carries, he got 2 total yards. So that certainly won't cut it.
Yeah, and he had that fumble that was recovered for a touchdown, too. So that's not looking great for his roster spot.
Not at all.
I know these run games weren't there, but these run defenses certainly were. I said don't start a fleet running back, and I hope you listened, because like you just said, they rushed for 31 total yards and no touchdowns. And a lot of this can be attributed to that spectacular run defense. The Fleet running backs had a combined 20 carries. Their longest was 8 yards. The Stallions' run defense was perhaps the most impressive defensive unit of the week, further proving that their stats as an excellent run defense don't lie. These guys are a brick wall.
But their stats in the win column could be quite deceiving.
They could, but you got to also, their secondary isn't great. We've talked about it before. They need a little bit more experience in the secondary and some guys to make big plays. They don't normally get picks. It's normally forced fumbles if they force any turnovers at all. So that's something they really have to work on.
They do have the sack leader on their team, Carter Schultz. 5 sacks on the year so far, and that's number 1 in the AAF. He's on pace to, right now he's getting 1 sack a game. He's on pace to break double digits in a 10-week season.
Yeah, that's a lot of this. That's what you really have to look at here. With some of these stats, they might seem a little low, but you have to remember, this is only 10 weeks. That's 6 weeks shorter than a regular NFL season. So some of these guys don't even get 10 sacks during a 16-game NFL season. So a 10-sack year for Carter Schultz would really, really look good on his resume.
Yeah.
Speaking of another defensive line that is playing really well, the Fleet defensive line is also looking great. Their entire defense is getting better and better every week, and they're getting to be scary good. This defensive line got to the quarterback 3 times, hit him 10 times, and forced 2 fumbles. They also had a very explosive Stallions running game pretty much in check, save for those 2 short touchdowns. DeMontre Moore is establishing himself as possibly the most dangerous pass rusher in the AAF, of course, along with Carter Schultz. And with their secondary starting to play well, they're only going to get better. And this defense they're probably looking at the Iron defense, and they're thinking, we can be better than them. We can be the number 1 defense in the AAF.
Well, they certainly are going to need to do that with a rushing attack like they have now. So maybe that's why the rushing attack isn't that good. They're getting stuffed in practice, and it's just translating to the game.
Yeah, another big thing here. Turnovers, 5 for the Stallions, 2 of which were returned for touchdowns. Take care of the ball, and you win by 2 touchdowns. That's all I have to say. You got to take care of the ball. You can't turn it over 5 times and expect to win the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Fleet defense is good, though, and the Fleet defense is better than Mike Bercovici in my expert analysis.
I mean, you can't expect to win the game. I can't believe that they kept it that close, turning the ball over 5 times, which is a testament to how good the Stallions could be if they just limit those mistakes that really get themselves. They're shooting themselves in the foot every week and losing these close games. Like we said, if they can just win one of these close games, I think it'll switch momentum in their favor, but they have to get over that hump.
Yeah.
All right, game MVP. This is the first all-outright defensive MVP for the whole game for me, and that is cornerback Cameron Kelly. This dude was insane. Just a few weeks ago, he was a wide receiver, and now he made the Fleet coaching staff look like absolute geniuses after they switched him to cornerback. He snagged 3 picks, 1 going for a touchdown. He also had 5 tackles, 3 passes defended. This kid balled out, and he wins my game MVP.
Man, no wonder he had great hands.
Yeah, exactly.
My game MVP is a little bit different, though. I got to go with Dontez Ford. My Week 1 power player had a very good statistical week with 94 yards, but his clutch gene is what got him in this position today. When the Fleet needed a miracle with 41 seconds left, he came down with a 45-yard prayer thrown by Berkovici to get their team in field goal range. Without Ford, trust me, the Fleet lose this game by 1. Stallions start rolling on a hot streak.
There we go.
And from there, we will move on to our Sunday games. Personally, one of the most exciting games of the week, possibly number 1 in my opinion, Express at the Legends. Just as I predicted, this game was one of the best, but not the best though, because the Fleet Stallions ending was far closer than anyone ever could have thought it would be.
Yeah.
To start off this game, the Express would go 3 and out and give the ball to Atlanta exactly where they would have been to start the game. The Legends would then follow this up with a 14-play drive and only end in a field goal.
Classic Legends.
Yes, so to start this game, I think that the Legends of the beginning of the year were back. And just 2 drives later, though, the Legends fumble in their own red zone and give Memphis the ball on the 7-yard line. And Zach Stacy would score a touchdown on this possession. And again, I'm thinking the Legends of week 1 through 3, they're back.
I was worried. I was like, no, please, don't let it be so. Let them have a good game. I don't want this to be a blowout.
Yeah, well, this game is already eventful 1 quarter in, and immediately following this drive, though, the Legends go on another long drive, this one in the second quarter, so you knew it was different. 15 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown. The Legends have a lead in all of the possession at this point. Add another Zach Stacy touchdown 4 minutes later, and this game has been nothing but back and forth. And one more very long drive by the Legends, ending in a last-second field goal, would give the Legends a 14-12 halftime lead. Woo! But to start the second, a 10-play Legends drive only ends in a punt. That's a lot of plays to only end in a punt.
Yes, it is. At least they're holding on to the ball. That is a good thing for the Legends. Take time off the clock when you're in the lead. That is at least a positive there.
That's true. The Express would make this the longest drive of the game and cap it off with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. But as per usual, the Legends tie the game back up at 20 with just 30 seconds into the fourth quarter. And then on their final drive, the Express throw a pick in the red zone. The Legends caught a major break, run out of time, and leave it to their perfect kicker, Younghoe Koo, to win it for them. Key players of this game.
Spectacular.
Aaron Murray, 27 of 43, 306 yards and a touchdown. Tareen Folston looks like he will be the starting running back going forward. 17 touches, 106 total yards. And defensive back for the Legends, Tyson Graham Jr. had 4 tackles, 2 pass defenses, and 1 interception, the game-sealing interception. For the Express, Zach Stacy, 15 touches, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Zach Mettenberger, he was 9 of 17, 181 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. And linebacker Drew Jackson, 9 tackles this week following a staggering 14 last week. I see you, Drew. Keep it up. Balling out players all across the field. Just a really star-studded game. You wouldn't have thought that week 2.
Game. No, you would have thought this would have been probably one of the snoozers of the AAF season, but it ended up being one of the best games we've seen all year. So that was pretty awesome.
I think in week 2 I texted you. I was like, I am not going to be excited for the Express Legends game week 5. And here I am now, and I'm freaking out over it because I think it was the best game of the week.
I agree. It was. Back and forth football, there's nothing better.
What a fun game to watch. Zampese, the offensive coordinator for the Legends, continues to impress with them. Zampese proved his worth last week with 444 yards last week, and dare I say it, they only got better this week. However, their yardage decreased. They only had 410 yards
is that
this
it?
week. They ran 76 plays. They had 38 minutes of possession, 17 more than Memphis. Ken Zampese he owned the ball.
Yeah,
the Legends just took complete control of this game.
AAF Twitter was absolutely aglow with praise for Zampese and his game calling this time. They dominated the Express on the offensive side of the ball, even if they had some of those long drives, and in no point still, like I said, if you're holding on to that ball, you are tiring out that defense, particularly if your offense isn't moving the ball themselves. You're getting that defense back on the field over and over and over again for long drives, just wears them down, and that 38 minutes of possession, that's a lot. It's hard for Memphis to get anything going with that.
Yeah, who knew that the Legends were only an offensive coordinator away from being a very good team?
You could also say a quarterback away, but they already had him. So
they had the quarterback, and we knew they had him.
We did. It is really remarkable because it's weird because it feels like the defense is playing better too. So
yeah.
It's like Zampese came in and pretty much changed this whole team right now. Right now, the best, I think, offensive minds as it looks right now are probably Zampese and Spurrier for the Apollos. I'm excited to see what the Legends can do now that they found this new swagger on offense.
Yep. You just mentioned it a little bit. The Atlanta defense did step up. In these past 2 weeks, the Legends have found their offense and their defense. In these past 2 weeks, they have held teams to 20 or less points and an average of just 263 total yards.
Yeah, I've got to say, those two safeties, it's Tyson Graham Jr. and the guy who was hurt this week, Ed Reynolds. They're excellent. They're really, really solid. They're the anchor of that secondary. The secondary was normally pretty weak, but they're both excellent safeties, and I think they're the core of this defense. They have some great pass rushers up front. Khalil Bass is an excellent linebacker in the middle. Tracy Sprinkle, like I said, great great pass rusher. And we also, you and I like Duran Grant because he played for the Steelers a little bit in their preseason games. Unfortunately was cut, and now he's playing for the Legends, and he's an exciting player to watch as well at cornerback.
Yeah, he was a monster. Tyson Graham Jr. is tied for the lead in tackles halfway through the year. So he's definitely making his
safety,
mark.
That's very impressive.
Very. You can only hope that the good things continue for them as they continue to roll on in their season. But let's talk about what went wrong for Memphis. We talk about the Zach attack all the time, but only one Zach showed up to this game. Zach Mettenberger was by no means terrible in this game, but he completed less than 10 passes and threw for 0 touchdowns. It's almost as if he never showed up.
Yeah,
While he was slacking, Stacy was out here working, though. He had 86 total yards, including a 41-yard reception and 2 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah, it's hard to look at Zach Mettenberger and say he had a bad game, except for, of course, that game-ending pick that he threw. He still looks solid. He still looks better than Hackenberg ever did. So I encourage Memphis to not lose hope in Mettenberger quite yet. Give him some more chances. Also, I have no idea who your next quarterback is, so you might be stuck with him for the rest of the year unless if Hackenberg shows something off in practice or whatever. But don't lose faith yet, Express fans. I think Mettenberger still can be solid. He needs to get some more throws in. He needs to play maybe a defense that's a little easier to throw against to get some confidence.
That's true. I think it's too early to try and go and bench Mettenberger, but I certainly say don't lose confidence in him. He's still a great quarterback. They just happen to play, in my opinion, the first or second hottest team in the league right now.
Yeah.
But Memphis, though, I said that they were lucky last week. They really rely on the big play. The only reason Memphis held on in this game was the big play. The entire game, the Express struggled to sustain drives, but all of their touchdowns had come off of one big play. Let's go through them all. Their first touchdown was led off of an interception in the red zone. They got the ball on their own 7-yard line in the red zone. And then after that, the start of their second touchdown drive was a 31-yard run by Stacy. It was a catch. And finally, their last touchdown was set off by a 56-yard Beatty reception. If it wasn't for these big plays, Memphis was getting phased out early by Atlanta. But these big plays got them in good range early, and it kind of boosted the morale enough to say that, hey, we can score this drive.
Yeah, you just talked about Stacy and Beatty really exploding for this offense, and I think right now they're looking like the two biggest pieces of the Express offense. Stacy, that 7-yard touchdown run they had was not an easy one if you watched. He had to drag about 3 different Legends players into the end zone with him, but he, of course, powered through. He wanted that. Beatty, once again, he's looking like he's an excellent receiver, and he made a sweet spin move during he caught a flat route. Yeah, he caught a flat route and made a sweet spin move to gain yards in a play that was absolutely blown up. So there's only good things coming from this Express backfield, and if their quarterback play can match this, they could sustain some of these long drives that the Legends were able to beat them with.
Yeah, and with the Iron losing these last 2 games, the race in the East looks like it's going to be close.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta was, at the end of the day, bailed out by a big play at the end with that Zach Mettenberger interception, but their long drives were what really gave them the win.
Yeah.
Huge possession. And while we're talking about the Legends, or Young Wei Koo is clutch. When we do our end-of-season awards, look out for Koo to win Special Teams Player of the Year for me, because there is nothing this guy can't do. Let's just quickly run through this. He's got the first points in AAF history.
Hey, that's a big achievement.
He's 11 of 11 on kicks, and he doesn't have 1 but 2 game-winning kicks, and we're only halfway through the year.
Yeah, Young Wei has been obviously one of the best kickers in the league. I think him and Elliott Fry are the only 2 left who are perfect, both of them on teams who are, the Apollos have been trending upwards all season, but the Legends are trending upwards right now, and it's really nice to feel secure in your kicker. He's going to make those kicks to give you the vital points you need to win these games. So Young Wei Koo, he's looking awesome. If you haven't seen his video on, I think it's on YouTube, it's on the internet somewhere, of him like kicking the ball and doing a backflip while he does it and making a field goal, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls that off in a game. I'm totally kidding, but that'd be awesome. If he has that much confidence in his kicking abilities.
He is so cool. If your NFL team needs a kicker, start tweeting at him right now, because I think I may be doing that soon. Gave MVP for me, offensive coordinator. He's not even on the team. Oh, he's on the team. He's not a player. Ken Zampese. Ever since Zampese has come to Atlanta, this team has improved 1,000,000 times over. His play calling led them to dominate possession and ultimately win this game.
I'm a big fan of giving MVPs to people who don't play or entire units on the field, but I will give my actual player MVP to Aaron Murray. This dude is finally playing like we thought he could at the beginning of the season. The AAF better be ready for the Aaron Murray and Ken Zampese show.
Yep. And as we move on to our final game of the week, we have the weirdest one of the bunch.
It was very strange.
Commanders at Hot Shots. This was one weird game to watch. Commentators would say that this would be a story of 2 halves, but this game takes that to a whole new extreme. The first half was all Commanders, and when I say all Commanders, I mean they couldn't make a mistake for 25 minutes. They open up the drive for Arizona, and they pick off John Wolford and return this for a touchdown. Then following an Arizona punt, Logan Woodside hits Mikhail McKay for a 56-yard touchdown on their first offensive possession of the game, and they convert the 2-point conversion. Next Arizona possession, John Stockton fumbles on Arizona's half. Commanders drive down and score with Kenneth Farrow. Next 2 Arizona possessions end in interceptions, and they take one of the following drives for a touchdown. Commanders up 26-0. We're not even at halftime yet. But here is where the mistakes start. The Commanders were in the red zone at the end of the first half, looking to extend their lead to probably 30, but the center snapped it when Woodside wasn't ready, and that led to a fumble. And the Hotshots, happy to catch one break, ran out the half, and they tried to regroup, and my goodness, did they. Commanders up 26-0 at half. I can't even imagine what that halftime talk would have been like for Rich Neuheisel.
Yeah, that had to have been intense.
Yeah, second half now, all Arizona. Commanders drive to the Arizona red zone, and they get intercepted on the 2-yard line.
Dude, these red zone picks, you got to stop them. You got
Seriously.
to. They're so big.
And just like that, the Hotshots follow this up with a drive ending with a 45-yard Wolford to Ross touchdown. And then the start of the fourth quarter, the teams trade field goals, which would prove vital at the end of the game. Arizona follows San Antonio's field goal with an 11-play drive ending in a touchdown. And then the Commanders go 3 and out, and the Hotshots score again with 1:20 left, 25-29. They have a shot.
No,
but their luck runs out. I hate you.
Yeah. I know.
They fail to convert the 2-point conversion or the onside conversion, and San Antonio scrapes out with a 29-25 win in this game.
I gotta say it was in Arizona, but if there were any Commanders fans there or any Commanders fans watching on TV, I would have been unbelievably nervous to watch my team almost blow a 26-0 lead, reminiscent of the Falcons in the Super Bowl. It would have been the worst. So I'm happy for the nerves of the Commanders fans that their team was able to get a win, but also it would have been pretty spectacular to see a 26-point comeback from the Hotshots.
Seriously. Key players in this game, Logan Woodside. He was a whole nother beast in this game. 21-27, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Mikhail McKay, 5 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown. Defensive back Deron Smith had 2 picks and took one to the house for a touchdown. And for the Hotshots, John Wolford hasn't come back yet, but he's on his way. 19-33, 246 yards, 2 touchdowns, but a fatal 3 interceptions. And Rashad Ross blew up, 5 receptions, 106 yards, and a touchdown. My goodness, are these two deadly.
Yeah, Ross still has a touchdown in every single game he's played. He's at 6 on the season. He has almost 100 yards in nearly every game he's played as well. Right now, if you were going to ask me to rank the wide receivers in terms of skill and stuff, I'd actually put, personally, Ross at 1, Johnson at 2, and then McKay probably at 3, with Pearsonell definitely on the come-up. But Charles Johnson and Rashad Ross, it's really hard to rank those two. Both of those guys look like they have potential in the NFL right now. So it's exciting to see that we have some big play wide receivers in this league. I was a little worried those first couple games. Some of these guys were dropping some footballs, and I was like, oh boy, this might be rough. But so far, it looks like things are working out, and there are some wide receivers who are really stepping up. And of course, Ross and McKay were 2 of those in this game.
Yep, stories of these games. Game of 2 halves. I've never seen a game quite like this. The first half was absolutely run by the Commanders as they outscored the Hotshots 26-0. And then the second half was all Hotshots as they outscored the Commanders 25-3. I've never seen a momentum switch quite like that.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I guess if you're going to get hot, I'd rather do it in the first quarter, the first half, because then you're all about defense from there on.
Yeah, the Commanders' defense, they impressed me in that first half. Certainly, they were strong. They were physical. They had 3 picks that first half. Excellent stuff from them. The Hotshots, their offense, I don't know. It just won't get going until late in the game, and it's almost always too late, and that's why they're dropping these.
Yep. Another thing for me with the Commanders, though, is where has this Logan Woodside been all year? Woodside played so well this game, I didn't even recognize him. He looked like one of the best QBs in the league going through this game, and he was really fun to watch. If we look at the stats, through the first 4 weeks, he completed just 49.6% of his passes. This week, 77.8%. He doubled his touchdowns through his first 4 weeks of play in this one game with 2 touchdowns. He also averaged 5.9 yards per pass through 4 weeks. In this game, 10.7. I don't know where he came from, but if he keeps it up, watch out for the Commanders.
I have absolutely no idea what happened. The Hotshots had like the second-ranked secondary in the league, and then Woodside came in and laughed at it. I don't know what happened. It's certainly exciting for the Commanders to see that they don't have to lean on Kenneth Farrow rushing for 142 yards to win a game. Instead, their quarterback looks excellent. Also, I'd like to talk about another part of their team that has started to show up, and that's their secondary. They were ranked as the worst secondary in the league going into Week 5, and they are looking much better. They have 5 picks in the last 2 games and are starting to be able to control opposing quarterbacks. Wolford did still throw for 246 and 2 touchdowns, and Ross still had over 106 yards and a touchdown, but Wolford only went 19 for 33, and of course those 3 picks. If you can pick off a quarterback, it's hard for them to get momentum going.
Yeah, I swear John Wolford has the worst luck with interceptions. His interceptions are either within 30 yards of his own goal line, or they're almost always returned for points. His 3 interceptions led to 12 points for the Commanders this game, which, believe it or not, I don't think is the worst game he's had yet with his turnover luck.
Yeah, he just needs to relax when he has his own end zone in his back. I think he starts playing too tight. He's nervous, particularly since he knows he's thrown interceptions in this position before. I'm not sure what the Hotshots can do to help him. I don't know if it's try to run the ball a little more, but they were having some trouble running the ball this game. So I'm not sure what's going to need to happen, but he just needs to relax when he has his end zone at his back and deliver some throws, maybe some nice easy slants over the middle, something like that, so he can get out of there and actually air it out to that receiver like he has in Rashad Ross.
Yep, Wolford just needs to take a quick page out of Aaron Rodgers' book and relax.
Yeah, just relax.
And another thing, the final thing I have to mention, is the lack of a run game. Neither one of these teams were able to establish a run game, giving the new Logan Woodside and his Commanders a clear advantage, with Wolford looking quite rusty. The Commanders, for them, neither Farrow or Trey Williams broke 25 total yards in this game, and that was definitely a contributor to the Hotshots' second half, as they were able to chew clock. They were not able to chew clock very effectively. And the Hotshots, their leading rusher only had 33 yards. It was just a real strange game on the rushing, especially after Kenneth Farrow's incredible Week 4 game.
Yeah, this one was weird. The San Diego Stallions game, I expected the rushing to maybe be limited because both of them have excellent defensive lines and run defenses, but both of these teams had pretty average run defenses coming into here, and they absolutely bottled up these opposing running backs. Of course, the Hotshots in the second half really had to air the ball out because they had no choice, but still, very surprising stuff from those run games.
Yep. Game MVP for this game, new Logan Woodside. I don't know where he came from, but I hope he's here to stay because he was very, very fun to watch. His timely passes and high completion rate was certainly a leading factor in winning this game for the Commanders.
Yep, I totally agree there. Logan Woodside, he finally stepped up. He's exactly what the Commanders needed right now, and he's also my MVP.
Yep. And then now we move on to our final little thing. Where we were right and where we were wrong. Just a little second for us to gloat.
Just a little thing. Also gloat and be ashamed. So what do we get right? I got right. Ross is a monster every week. Another game with over 100 yards and a touchdown. Start him no matter what, even if he's not my power player, even a plug. Put him in your lineup. He's going to be excellent week in and week out. Both of us said that Zach Stacy would be back to his normal self, and he certainly was. He didn't have that many rushing yards, but he still managed to get 2 touchdowns and is looking like a dual-threat running back with some great hams on some great receptions.
Don't be looking at another man's hams.
I know, hams. He's probably got great hamstrings, though. Powerful legs.
And the Express are not a very dangerous team. They followed up a 225-yard performance with a 217-yard performance. They will only win games off of mistakes, as we have seen 2 weeks now. And this was another game that almost ended that way for them, though. So maybe it's a successful strategy.
Yeah, maybe it is. My final thing that I got right this week that I enjoyed was Dontez Ford. He was my player to watch in that game. He wasn't the best fantasy performer, but he played some ball and set up the game-winning field goal. So that was really cool to watch.
Yep. All
right, what did we get wrong? Well, I said start Denard Robinson. He's not the guy for the Legends. I think he had 1 carry for -6 yards. Ooh. So I really apologize if you started him. It's Taron Folston. Start him from here on out. Just forget Denard Robinson. That was a bad one.
Yep. Where I got wrong, my power player, John Wolford. It certainly wasn't a terrible game. He got some points, but 3 interceptions really is enough for an apology from me, and I'm sorry. And another quarterback that I'm very sorry, Mike Bercovici. I don't even have to explain it anymore. It's just I was blown out of the water.
We apologize, Bercovici, from the bottom of our hearts. It felt like a Commander's linebacker hit us in the face.
It was that surprising.
Yeah, it was that surprising.
I didn't see it coming, like Mike Bercovici and a Commander's linebacker.
No, but something obviously got knocked into the right spot, and you're looking good so far, so keep it up, fella. Yes. And finally, last thing wrong, Woodrum was actually a decent fantasy start despite the picks, but he didn't have the game I thought he would. If you still started him, I think he still ended with 19 points in our league, because he did still have over 300 yards and a touchdown despite the 3 picks. But he didn't have the game I expected him to. I still believe in you, Josh. Keep slinging it. I think you'll be excellent someday, but just take care of the ball. a lot of other quarterbacks have to do it too. So if you can limit those turnovers, then they will look good as a team, and he will look good as a quarterback.
Certainly. And finally, post Week 5 power rankings. Number 1, I'm sure you could guess, Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
They're unstoppable. They're 5-0. I think the next best team is now 3-2, so they've got a 2-game lead in the entire league. Just no one's come close to them so far, and after them, it's just a huge gap before we reach our number 2 team.
Yeah.
Number 2, we're going with San Antonio. I think that they got really hot this game on that win, even though their second half wasn't that great. Logan Woodside showed a side of him that we've never seen before, and that really impressed me at least, and I think it was very worthy of number 2 in the power rankings.
Yeah, I gotta say, they have the pieces to be an excellent team, so I do agree with this one here. If Woodside stays hot and their secondary stays hot, they already have an excellent pass rush that has shown us they can stop the run. They have Mikhail McKay and Greg Ward Jr. at wide receiver. These guys are big, tall, fast wide receivers who can make big plays down the field. So the Commanders are looking like a great team right now. At number 3, we have the Fleet. This team is totally different than the one we saw in the early weeks of the AAF. Their defense looks scary. Berkovici looks like he isn't going to turn the ball over that often. Their run game was a little lackluster, but once again, they were playing the best run defense in the AAF, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have a better game next week. And so, yeah, Fleet at number 3.
That's true. Number 4, we have Birmingham. They were 3-0, but suddenly they're on a 2-game skid, and they just need to get things back. Benching Luis Perez definitely didn't help them in the power rankings, and another loss also didn't help. We got them at 4 because of their record, but if they continue to stay this cold, you can see them dropping some more next week.
Yeah, speaking of a team that is doing the exact opposite of that, that is the Legends. We now have them at number 5, and I would not be surprised if they move up and up and up in these power rankings. Like we said, the combination of Aaron Murray and Zampese is proving to be one of the best chemistries between offensive coordinator and quarterback we've seen in the AAF so far. Their run game looks competent. Their defense looks excellent. So these guys will be on the rise in the power rankings.
Yep, and number 6 might surprise you. We're really high on them for some reason, but
yeah.
Salt Lake, they're 1-4, I know, but they're losing these games so dang close that I can't help but not tank the ranking.
Yeah. That's the one thing for me. They're so close to winning that we had them higher in earlier weeks, and they keep losing, so we have to drop them down so we don't look like absolute fools. But I do feel like this is one of the better teams, and if they can just figure it out, they will win. But it might never happen, and we might have false hope in them. But yeah, they're now at number 6. They just need a little bit of luck.
Number 7, we have the Memphis Express. They're also 1-4, and they haven't been that great so far, but they started to figure things out, and just when we thought they figured things out, they fell again. I'm telling you, they really just rely on turnovers and lucky breaks, and quite frankly, that's not a recipe for success in my eyes, hence why they will be number 7.
Yeah, our number 8 spot here, I could maybe put them at number 7 and the Express at 8, but right now, just because the Express have been a little luckier, and for purely momentum reasons, the Hotshots are our number 8 team. They just haven't been able to get it going. They're on a 3-game skid after starting out 2-0. Nothing looks as crisp as they did in Week 1. If they can find that Week 1 team again, they'll shoot back up in these power rankings. But right now, I think maybe if we put them at 8, it'll light a fire under them, and they'll try to get a little better. But right now, Wolford isn't looking as sharp. He's throwing picks. Yeah, the defense isn't looking that hot either, so it just makes sense to have them at 8 right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little higher up at the end of next week.
Absolutely.
All right, well, there we have it. Another episode in the books, episode 12. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, we will have our Week 6 preview on Friday as we prepare ourselves for another exciting week of AAF football. This league really looks like it's going to become pretty tight down the stretch here as we approach the playoffs. Very excited for that as well. Once again, don't forget to listen to us anywhere and everywhere. You can get us now on Spotify too, which is also really cool. Of course, YouTube, all those other things. Leave us reviews, hopefully 5 stars. If not, if you hate us, let us know. Maybe we'll fix it. Who knows? Follow us on Twitter as well for important announcements and episode release announcements. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and peace out and play football.
Thank you for listening to the AAF Analyzed podcast. Follow the show on Twitter at AAF Analyzed, and feel free to contact the show to have your questions featured on a future episode. And don't forget to check out the show on all other platforms such as iTunes, Overcast, SoundCloud, and YouTube.